Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is April 5th, and it is the Daily AI Show. You're listening, watching the Daily AI Show. And today we're going to be talking about what did we just say, which this is our 2-week opportunity. Every 2 weeks, we do this on a Friday. It's an opportunity to sort of stop, pause, look back at 2 weeks worth of shows. What did we talk about? Maybe what conversations have we had outside of those shows? New things that came out in the news. There's some new stuff with Claude that Beth was bringing up to us. That's pretty interesting. So it's just a great way for us to sort of circle back on some of these topics. And as of right now, we have Jyunmi, Andy, Beth, and I'm Brian. And yeah, I don't know, Beth. I kind of feel like maybe Claude would be the place to start this conversation. So you had brought it up, and I had gotten an email. So I was reading your Slack message in the email, and basically what it said here, and I'll just bring up the email. So I'm saying it the way Anthropic saying it. It says, "Hello, we're excited to share that tool use," which was in bold, "which enables the Claude 3 model family to interact with external tools, is now available in beta to all customers in the Anthropic Messages API. Tool use, or function calling, is a frontier AI capability that allows Claude to reason, plan, and execute a set of actions by generating structured outputs via API calls. In this beta, we'll continue to focus on client-side tools and have introduced a new API format for tool definitions and calls, enhancing reliability, simplicity for developers." Now, the only
Gripping
thing
stories.
Well, give me a second here. Woohoo!
No, but it is right. Our people are out there going, yes, this is awesome.
It is really awesome, and I'd love to hear. I'm trying to find. Oh, here it is, really quick. I just want to say this before you guys jumped in. Here's a new word, and I don't know if Claude is trying to coin this one, but it's in the email. With tool use, Claude can agentically.
Yes.
Agentically.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna hear all flavors of agent moving forward, right? Like,
I was like, I had to stop on that one. I was like, agentically. I was like, I'm not sure that's a word, but good on you, Anthropic, for throwing it in an email and making it sound real smooth. So,
Anthropic introduces Claude agentification. Have you agentified your Claude?
You're probably right. It'd be like Copilot. All right, Beth, tell us why this is so exciting.
So part of why it's so exciting is that Claude is a fairly reliable model, right? So they've already done the increased reasoning and writing capabilities. So a lot of people are moving over to Claude because it's so good in those things. Excuse me. But now you add that to giving Claude the ability to spin up a sub agent or 100 of them at the same time to do a reasoning process that Claude 3, Opus, the smartest, most capable model, decides is a good idea. And they spin up, in the examples that they were using, they spin up Haiku, which is the smallest, quickest model, cheapest to use, actually incredibly inexpensive to use. And so I actually had a conversation with Perplexity this morning. And so, like, what are some ideas that this could be used for? Analyzing hundreds of reports simultaneously to extract key insights and metrics. Searching large code repositories to find and combine optimal implementations. Generating personalized product recommendations for thousands of users based on their profiles. Simultaneously polling multiple data sources and API to gather real-time information. I imagine that is going to be rate blocked at some point, but if you know what that means, have at it. Stress testing a system. So if you are if you're launching something, this is a way to just send a ton of resources at it. But there were also like generating a ton of variations of ad copy, product descriptions, the kinds of things that you want to know. Are they engaging people in an A/B test or an AZ test? Or I don't know what happens when you go beyond 26. But the idea in this is that the main idea in this is that Claude is your smart, really capable friend who just revealed that they have a bunch of, they can magically wave a magic wand, spin up a bunch of helpers conduct them, ask them to do something, aggregate the data that they bring back, and give you an answer. That's why this is exciting.
And so one thing this is a follow-up question for anybody that I had a question with, which is, they tools, you could pull up tools and they give basic examples, which is fine. They're giving it as part of their sort of cookbook. And they're saying, for example, if you could run things concurrently, you could run them in sequence. So, what's the weather going to be like where I live? Right. So first that there's got to be a call in there that says, well, how do I know where you live? So there's that part of it. And then there's now that I know where you live, I can look at the current temperature. And then there was an example where it gives back an answer to it. Okay, that makes sense. Like get weather, that's the tool, right? But how do you know the available tools to use? That part was sort of lost on me. And so is there like a directory of tools? How do you know? I mean, this just made me my ignorance in like JSON and things like that. But how do you in fact know what tools are available to now go play with this API with Claude?
So there are basically what it's saying is that it can use APIs and it can function call. That is something that other APIs can do. That's something a code interpreter can do. I'm sure that there's like GitHub repositories of a ton of these.
It also allows them to be built. So on whatever you're trying to call in, that can be built in. So that's the key part is it has the ability to directly communicate with all of those other tools and all of those other features. And that's the main thing, right? And having that API call or that function call to all of those programs or to all of those services just expands out everything you can tie in. So you can now use Claude on a much, what's the word I'm looking for? Just generally, it just expands out and multiplies the use cases in which you can integrate Claude into the workflow.
And I'm going to give an imperfect example and a different answer. One is the imperfect example is that this is sort of like Claude now saying I can do make and Zapier things, right? Like I can reach out and integrate with other places that have an API that I can call and grab and do something with the information or the function that they're offering. But the other thing to keep in mind is that this is released in public beta. So to a certain extent, they also don't have a list of what someone might do with this. So like, hey, if you have an idea of what you can do with this, go ahead and do it. And so that's also part of what this is. It wasn't released like this is a super cool feature and we're telling you exactly how to use it. They give us a little cookbook and the public beta means figure it out and let us know or tell people, write about it.
You're our Salesforce expert. I could create an API call. Maybe I have to create the tool first, assuming. And I want to go in and I want to look and pull data on, this is being a sales example, data on prospects in the pipeline that have maybe stalled. And so then what I want to do is I want to pull that data and then I'm going to call to maybe a different tool and I'm going to do some searches to see anything new that might be going on with that company, anything that's come out, their last Q4 earnings or, whatever, Q1 earnings. I might want to be pulling in an annual report or something like that. And from that, I might be using Claude hypothetically to then bring back new insights to me that says, hey, you have these prospects that are kind of sitting in nowhere land. They're not really moving forward, but they're not dead either. And we're looking for new ways to send personalized communication back to them to ignite. But I don't want to just say hey, I saw you went to UGA. Nobody cares, right? That's personalization, but it's the wrong personalization in sales in my mind. So what I want to say is hey, I noticed that one of your main drivers in your last annual report or your Q1 report was to do such and such in marketing. One of the ways that we would be able to help with that and drive that home is by using XYZ solution that comes from the company. So long descriptor there, but is that all possible, Beth?
I'm going to give you a very Salesforce answer. I think, yes, that's possible with Claude, but that's also possible with Salesforce, and you should do it inside Salesforce.
but I like Claude.
All right.
That's my answer.
Function calling, like how it's implemented in OpenAI, I'm sure is going to be like this is the first I've heard of it, so I have to go look it up. But
Yeah.
I'm assuming that it's similar capabilities or along those lines, and you can extract structured data from text. So that's, if you can make a call and it'll grab specific things from whatever data source is, then yes, you can then compile it and put it together and, read into it all you want. Yeah.
And just real quick on this one, just because you called it out, Jimmy, which is correct. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. I got the email at 11:29 p.m. Eastern time. So quite literally, any of us have only really seen this since this morning because the email only showed up 10 hours ago. So we're all giving you our best. Anybody listening to this, this is kind of what the show is about. Is like, this is pretty fresh because we're just seeing it, and we have a couple of examples and stuff. But from last week when we did our deep dive review of Claude last Friday to now, obviously this is what's great about it because this came out after our show and it gives us an opportunity to talk about it. Okay, we did talk about a whole lot of other topics as well. Just as a quick refresher, I have him up here. We talked about the Apple M1 model. We did that a week ago Friday. We talked a lot about Sam Altman and Lex Friedman's podcast they did, which was really, really interesting. I need to go back actually listen to the most recent one that now has his name just went right out of my head. The owner of the Mavericks, Mark Cuban, with Sam Friedman on it, or with Lex Friedman, because it also has a lot of like some AI stuff in there as well, which is really interesting. We talked about an evolutionary model merge, obviously Claude, getting instant results, getting your business ready for GPT-5. And then yesterday we talked a lot about movies and not just movies, but like how movies are either correctly or incorrectly, talking about our future. And that ended up being a really good conversation too. I know, Jyunmi, you mentioned you do have some validation for one of the things you brought up. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So in our our AI and instant results show, I brought up this one story that I came across that could have been a little iffy because it was around April 1st, so April Fool's Day. But apparently it's for real, and it kind of blows my mind. Apparently a UK university team combined with Nokia team from the US and this Japanese team from their Institute for Telecommunications have in the lab found new wavelengths to use along pre-existing fiber optic cable to increase data bandwidth. All right. So just a little context. The average broadband connection to someone's home is 70 megabits a second. Some of you might be closer to, 900 or 1,000 megabits per second, or like a gigabit. They found a way to transfer data at 301 terabits. So that's 301 million megabits. So a little more than 70, right? So, and so just to give you, an analogy there, 301 terabits is approximately transferring about 1,800 4K resolution videos in 1 second. So you can transfer 1,800 or streaming 10,000 of those, all at the same time. That's how much data that is per second. So it really blew my mind. But I think the key takeaway here for me was that it uses existing fiber optic cable. Now it takes time, effort, manpower, and tons of money to either dig up the ground and lay new cable or change out cable and put in new cable, right? So being able to use all the fiber optic infrastructure that already exists and all you got to change out is the endpoint. That means in the next couple of years, we could see a lot of this, the benefits of this across our networks. because that's really easy to do. Just change out one component and put in a new one. Fantastic, right? Now, admittedly, this is in the lab, so it'll be a trickle down kind of thing. So we won't be at 300 terabits, in the next 2 years or whatnot. But because it's proven out that it exists and that it can be done, we should be able to see higher bandwidths across the board. Wherever there's fiber optic cable, we should be able to see huge jumps in bandwidth offerings. And if we don't, that's on purpose. All right.
I like that. I like that ending there. And that's on purpose. What did Jen say? She's this show makes me cry in Canadian. Don't worry though, it's not your fault. It's Claude's. Any comment on that, Karl? any Canadian comment on that?
I can't use it, so I'm like, it sucks. It's just it doesn't matter. I'm like, what? And the thing is, though, at the very least, Google actually released advanced that we can use it in Canada. Mm-hmm. I don't think Anthropic, outside of me finding that loophole to get the actual chatbot, like at the very, very beginning, because I didn't think they put the right whatever barriers on. There's no way that any Canadian can use this outside of going through Perplexity and then using it there. So which you can use it there. And then I think you can use the Perplexity API, which I think you can use Claude. But it's kind of weird. You have to do it that way, or you just go through OpenRouter. But it's funny though,
like Poe, right? I mean, you could still go to Poe and use Claude.
You could do that too. You could, or it's funny though, I have access to their API though, which have all of it. So it's kind of weird that you can't access the actual chatbot if you're in Canada. But hey, if you're a business, no problem. We'll give you the API.
So Karl, another $1 million idea. Spin up a business. All it is an API connector to your API. And then you can basically open router for all Canadians. It'll be all through your API.
Isn't that what open router does though?
I'm just saying, if other Canadians are running into a problem, you can use yours because you have all that expertise and it'll just be a better experience. Market it up, it'll be fine.
Yeah,
like a hey bud API or something like that. It'll be distinctly Canadian, and all Canadians will want to use it. Okay, so that's kind of things. Karl, Andy, you've been quiet. What are you guys thinking as far as some of the topics we've talked about?
Did we talk about Apple's Realm AI?
We mentioned it in the news show, but yes, talk about it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I just want to make sure that we're aware of this as an announcement this week, or the release of a research paper that gives better insight into what's happening behind the Chinese wall there for Siri. So Realm is a new AI system that Apple researchers just released, and it's not available for your use, but it's being articulated to apply to Siri, and it has some new approaches to converting screen information into text, right? And it also has really advanced image recognition capabilities. And the model that is there substantially outperforms GPT-4, according to the researchers. Now, despite having much fewer parameters than that. So there's some interesting advances that Apple's doing here. And here's an example use case. It said, if scrolling through a website and you see that you want to call the business that's on the screen, you could now tell Siri to just call the business. And
right.
Siri, using Realm, would be able to see the phone number on the website and call it directly. So it's all about making voice assistants more context aware of what you're doing with the device. And it's also, I'm not sure on what benchmarks, but it's saying it's outperforming GPT-4, which means it must be applied to certain benchmarks that will allow it to make that claim. And I don't have any details on that.
Right.
So there's something I also wanted to follow up on with respect to agentic developments, right? So this is the year of agents, and all of the major developers of large language models are imbuing their systems with agentic capability. And meaning, I think the main distinction here is that the model itself can decide or evaluate what tools and what combinations, and maybe explore multiple combinations of tools it can use to arrive at an objective that is its primary goal. So it reasons and figures out what the best combinations of actions or functions that it can call, would contribute to the solution, and then provides that solution. So I'm just going to share with you now a thing that just was released in the last few days by the University College of London. It's not actually released by, I shouldn't say it that way. PhD researchers at the University College of London, along with a faculty advisor, have started a company called WeCo AI. And they've just released a problem-solving agent called AID. And it's being applied to data science as its first task. And it is now performing better than 50% of human competitors in the Kaggle contests for data science analysis. So, but here's the interesting part of it to me. They have developed a new approach to agentic sort of decision making as a sort of an autonomous model goes about its efforts without any human guidance. And it's called solution space tree search. That's their methodology that they developed, which allows this particular device, combination of code and instructions, to beat more than 50% of humans trying to do the same tasks. Okay, the first part of it is a solution generator. It proposes new solutions by either creating novel drafts or making changes to existing solutions, such as fixing bugs or introducing improvements. That's the first piece. It has a generator. And I'm leading into how similar this is to the whole concept of generative adversarial networks that are used for image generation, right? So the next piece of it is the evaluator, which is common in a GAN, right? So you have a generator and you have an evaluator. The evaluator assesses the quality of each proposed solution and runs it and compares its performance against the objective. And then there's a third network, if you will. It's a deep neural network with these different components, a solution selector. And the selector picks the most promising solution from the explored options to serve as the starting point for the next iteration of refinement. So it's going to do this iteratively until it gets to the solution. And that's how it's performing so well compared to humans. So I thought that was really cool. And if we end up with more time at the end, I have a kind of an interesting example of an advancement in technology that I couldn't understand, but ChatGPT explained it to me in terms that I could. So I'll share that with you later.
One of the things that brings up is the idea of AGI, right? Not being like the thresholds that we think it is, because AI can do a bunch of things faster, right? So you don't have to be able to see the right solution if in half a second you can try all of them and then have evaluation done and come up with the solution. Like that is an intelligence, right? It's not what they mean by AGI, I think, but which is artificial general intelligence, but it is an increasing capability that we're already seeing prior to anyone saying we've achieved AGI.
That also reminded me of a callback to the AI movie show. Can't believe I forgot to mention this one, but like the ultimate close example is 1985's War Games with Matthew Broderick.
Oh,
It's a learning computer, right? That learns that this series of execution should not take place.
The only way to win the game is not to play.
Yeah.
Very strange.
Yeah.
I was
Sorry, I quoted it badly.
I need to watch that again. I haven't watched that movie in a really long time. I was going to say, shoot, I had a comment to yours, Beth. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, I was going to say, just sort of tangential to Apple and what we talked about with the M1 chip. One of the things we talked about is how we're moving ever closer to these language models and chip processing power, getting us closer and closer to being on device. And there was a news story that wasn't necessarily what we talked about, but just since it's similar, there was a news story that came out on Engadget that said that Microsoft's Copilot AI service is going to eventually run locally on PCs. Right now, even the smallest tasks have to run through the cloud. And of course, there's some lag associated with that as well. However, computers aren't necessarily powerful enough yet to do that. And what they're saying is that it will require built-in neural processing units, so an NPU, with over 40 TOPS. And TOPS stands for trillion operations per second of power. So right now, it says that the Apple M3 chip is the best and does 18 TOPS. So it's not that they're not coming; they are, but it's just showing like how everything's sort of running together. We have smaller, more efficient, faster, LLMs and the models themselves, but we also need the hardware to run alongside them in order to make them on device. Of course, this is just talking about locally on PCs. We can draw the line pretty quickly down to mobile devices and phones and even smaller units and things like that. And, heads up systems like on glasses that we see out there and stuff like that, where, now in the near future, there's a processing unit on a pair of glasses that's so powerful and so tiny that it sits in the side, behind your ear. And it's able to run very, very efficient language models on device, which you can imagine how powerful that would be if, right now what you see is, hey, glasses, right? Like, give me the answer to this. And there's always a lag. Sometimes they cheat and they'll like speed up the video or they'll chop out the lag to make it seem like it's moving faster, but it's not. It's like, how many calories are in this piece of cake? And it's like, let me think about it. That in the near future, I think, and what we're starting to see as it moves towards PCs is that, that stuff will exist fairly soon, I would say, on smaller devices.
On that subject, just 2 days ago, Stanford researchers released a new model that's tuned for Android. It's called Octopus V2 2 billion. Like it's outperforming in speed and with a 98% accuracy Llama 7 billion. And despite that capability, it can function on devices like PCs and smartphones. So you're right on. It's happening. It's happening now.
Yeah.
And it's just, showing that we're going to have real-time applications, real-time without accessing the cloud, but locally on your phone very soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Karl.
I'm just listening to everyone talking about, there's a paper on this, there's this thing coming on this. So I think, do you feel we're all just waiting, even though we're saying, hey, this year's the year of agents, like we're just waiting for it to actually come out? Like you've got the papers coming out, you've got everyone speaking about it. I guess like the biggest announcement, the biggest event right now, unless, we'll probably have events before, is WWDC, where we'll see probably Siri, that upgrade. It'll be interesting if Apple has an agent built in to Siri, and I have a feeling they'll have something related to that. So the question is, will OpenAI release something before or after? And that's like the big piece is, are they going to take the wind out of the sails, or is like everyone's like, oh, Apple's back? Because that's like on X, the most ridiculous clickbaits are going to come out. It's like, Siri just killed ChatGPT. Because I was like, I need to have a bingo card of like these phrases Number one.
That's a great idea. We should have AI bingo.
Daily
Totally.
AI bingo.
Another $1 million idea.
idea. Yeah.
Copilot, agent, AGI. Yeah, God, no, it's just so many of them. Hey, I do have a quick question for you guys when it comes to Siri. I think I mentioned this on the show, but like, do you guys currently use a lot of like talking out loud to like Siri or a similar type device? And if you don't, because I don't, and I think I mentioned this on the show that I watched my wife do it more after she got the Apple Watch for Christmas. And so I'll see her whispering into her wrist, more than I ever did before. And I get it. There's now a device that makes that easier for her. So she'll set timers to remind her to go pick up her daughter and stuff like that. And whatever. But do you guys, I still don't do that a lot. So I'm just curious if you guys think that's coming, because it does seem like so much of the AI, the Siri thing where it can read the screen and then call the number, but still I have to say, hey Siri, like call the number on the screen, or call this pizza shop, whatever it would be. And it's like, oh, like you were saying, Andy, okay, it's going to go do it and find the number, and that's cool and all. But I still think I would probably just press the button. So I'm just curious what you guys think really quick. Do you find yourself using more voice commands, and do you think that's going to happen even more with all this push with AI?
I think number one, that you are going to get a lot more voice command or voice interaction, just because for a lot of people, especially like non-computer, non-AI people, they're going to they'll find that transition easier. I think for people like me, who's been ingrained in how we use this AI, it will be a slog or a concerted effort to move to that. But I think anytime a new interface is introduced or a new methodology is introduced for, and we had this, computer interface show, it's going to take a concerted effort upon the companies to train their user base to use the new method. So yes, but us old guys are gonna be like, it'll be really hard for us to change our ways. I think that'll be.
I'm going to push back on that, because I find it super. So maybe the old ladies, I don't know, like the old guys can't do, but the old ladies can. It uses a different part of my brain. So I don't have to interrupt what I'm seeing and what I'm touching. I can just say, and I do it with timers all the time, right? Like set a reminder, set a timer, those sorts of things. And I want so badly for like, just add to a note, just like there are just some basic things. Add this to the idea that I was writing about the other day. I might even be able to like know the name of the file, but like the kinds of things that are so easy to do if you're like sitting and typing on something. So I would do a ton more if she would just work with me.
Yeah,
work with me, please.
All right, June 10th. That's when WDC their conference. That's on June 10th. That's on Monday. So I think we kind of know that Tuesday, June 11th, will be what just happened with at Apple's event and all that. And is Siri now super smart and all the things that go with it? I know we're running up on time here. You did just make me think of something with that, Beth, really quick on the Claude thing, because you're talking about notes, and Jen was saying about leaving notes and stuff. And my wife does that. My wife is known. She's the type of like her construction thinking. She likes a big desk. She spreads out a lot of papers. It looks like a lot of things are happening at once. My wife is brilliant, but that's how she works, right? To hand and stuff like that. I showed her the thing about Claude being able to read my hand notes, and she goes, "I'm going to try that on mine." And my first response in the kitchen was, "Good luck." So like hours go later, it's later in the day, and she texts me and she says, "Claude says my writing is hard to decipher." I was like, "There's a shocker right there." Claude is not at the level where he can take my wife's chicken scratch and make something happen. It's akin to doctor's notes at this point or whatever. So anyway, you just made me think about that. I don't know, thoughts as we wrap it up. I know, Andy, you had something. I don't know if we have time for that. Any other thoughts? I saw the note in here. Karl, you got anything?
I think like if I don't know if many people actually use this, but if you actually use Perplexity and use the voice feature, The response is amazing. Like I have actually started using Perplexity that way to do my searches. And it's not as kind of like the UI isn't as great as the ChatGPT actual mobile app, but when it speaks to you, it's like I wish they had that UI because it's just I was like, oh, this is great. Like the answers are great. The voice is great. I don't like you got to give it a shot on the Perplexity app and just start doing your searches with it. Again, not as and then what's awesome is because you've programmed it with Claude with you can pick the models. Yeah, it's fascinating what it comes up with too.
I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna tell my daughter about that too. She's always doing searches. That's my daughter. My 13-year-old does a lot of searches with voice. That's supernatural for her to do. Not supernatural, but natural for her to do. Maybe supernatural. I don't know. Maybe we're getting there.
But what's is like when you do it on Perplexity, your expectation of everything else is so much higher that you can't ask Alexa anything. You're like, oh my god, like, I can't even ask you because I know you won't even like. You're like, I gotta dumb myself like 100 degrees. It's like I don't. Yeah, you can't. It's hard once you
timers, reminders, and weather.
Real quick question: Is it unidirectional or bidirectional? Is your positive experience where you speak and then something spits out and you read it later, or is it always bidirectional where you speak and it speaks back to you? Because sometimes I don't have time, or I feel like I'm not doing enough if I'm listening or waiting.
Oh, you can read it, or you can listen to it, or you can turn off the voice. It's up whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
I want to put this comment on here real quick before we wrap up because it made me laugh when I read it. And when I said I couldn't remember what I wanted to respond back to, Beth. Greg commented Brian ran out of tokens, which actually is such a bad AI joke that it made me laugh. Yeah. And so thank you, Greg, for cracking me up this morning. I routinely run out of tokens, and I not surprisingly run out of tokens the later in the night it gets. So my token usage definitely decreases later in the day. All right, I think we're kind of there on time, so we're going to wrap things up.
Continue, and then we'll get a next set of tokens. There you go.
What did you say, Jyunmi?
Well, if you see any of us paused thinking about something, just tell us continue, and then we can get another set.
That's right. Or Jyunmi, you know this answer. You've done this before, and you're like, "Oh, that's right. That's what I want to say." She's got to coax them on.
Exactly.
Beyond context.
All right. Listen, we'll have a whole bunch of new topics next week. As always, come on back and listen to us. Thank you to all our followers and subscribers. I did some deep dive in the analytics, and our audience is showing up. So thank you so much for that. This is episode, believe it or not, 175. We are climbing. We'll be at episode 200 before you know. So thank you to everybody that's listening to our shows. We are very grateful, and we continue. We hope to be doing this for a long time in the future. So. With that, I'll say goodbye. Have a great weekend, everybody. This is fun this week, and we'll do it again next week. Bye.
Aloha.
Oh.